Today's video is on H and it's going to be about Heiken-Ashi Candlesticks. So this is your conventional candlestick chart. It just uses the open, high, low and close standard. This is what you're used to. And so what's good about the Heiken-Ashi, it gives you a bit more information about what you're seeing here. And so the calculation on the Heiken-Ashi, this is Heiken-Ashi on the left, this is your standard candlesticks on the right. It uses a unique calculation on the candlestick calculation. So what it does, well, this uses your open, high, low, close. That's your high, that's your low. This is where we opened, this is where we closed, for example, and it gives us a breakdown. It's what you're used to seeing, this is what your standard candlesticks are. Now what this does, it gives us the average price of the current bar and the midpoint of the previous bar. So if we know if we look at a big time frame, if we've got a red candle, we have opened below the midpoint of the last week. So it gives us more of an idea about the trend. Okay, so with the dollar yen, you could argue we've had like a trend reversal because we've had a red Heiken-Ashi candle. The one next opened below its midpoint. This one opened below its midpoint. This one. And so this is what I'm thinking. We are just going to see a continuation on the dollar yen until we get a green Heiken-Ashi candle, and then that will be the end of this downtrend. So that's really important. So basically it's the average price of your current bar, and then it takes into account the midpoint of the previous bar, right? And that's the calculation there. So it's doubly powerful than your standard candlestick formula. If you looked at this, you think, oh, this is pretty bullish. We've got a bullish development here. Last week it was bullish. It was green. This week's looking pretty good. But if we take into account where we opened according to the previous bar, it's actually not so bullish. It's quite bearish because we opened below the midpoint. Okay, so it gives us an idea about trends. And what it's quite cool is that it uses a very scientific view of the market. This just gives us like a eagle eye view. This gives us more of like a soldier view at the low level. And so we're interested in the midpoints. Why are we interested in the midpoints is because of the binary value it gives us, 1 or 0. Are we above or below the midpoint? We're below the midpoint. So that's why we've got a bearish bias on a weekly on the Heiken-Ashi. Okay, so let's look at maybe Bitcoin, maybe. And so we are trying to create a bottom. We're starting to have a trend reversal on Bitcoin. Now let's have a look at Bitcoin on your standard chart. According to this, we're having a bearish development, right? But we have to wait for it to cross the midpoint of the previous week. And this is why this is quite a bit more powerful than your standard candlestick. You could probably enter thinking, oh, this is bearish. But we haven't closed below the previous week. That's really important. So let's look at pound, maybe. Pound. Right. And so you can see how you can use it. All right. So if you were to wait for the candlestick to change, admittedly you would have done very well on this downtrend. Had you have waited for this to go green, you could have potentially got a bit a bit chewed up there, but then you wait, and then once you've waited probably 2 weeks, then you know that we've broken this downtrend, and we can continue higher, and we're going to continue higher until we get a red bearish Heiken-Ashi candle. So basically, it's the average price of your current bar, and it takes into account the midpoint of the previous bar, and that's just how it calculates the color. Okay, so it gives us a lot more information about the trend than your typical candlestick. So hopefully that helps. And I've got a bearish bias on dollar yen because of this weekly Heiken-Ashi candle. And also another thing before I wrap up is that we ideally what you want to do is that once you've established red or green, then you come down. I guess the daily, we might be reversing a little bit on the daily. You come to H4, so looking fairly strong on H4. So it's going to be a question what's going to be the, you know, the predominant candle is probably going to be the weekly. So we're seeing a little reversal here, and so I don't know. It depends on like your approach to trading. You could be a scalper, or you could be like a swing trader. See, the M5 is agreeing with the weekly, so you could probably argue M15, M30. That's probably okay, and H4 they're being a bit naughty, right? And even maybe the daily. And that'll really throw people off. So good idea is to look at your weekly time frame and then drill down, and then you try and get the colors to match. Okay, and remember, this is a lot more powerful because it uses a unique calculation on the candlesticks. This just gives us like a bog standard analysis. This gives us like a trend analysis, which is very powerful. I'm not sure what tomorrow's video is going to be on tomorrow because it has to be about I. And I can't think on the top of my head anything that begins with I, but I'll try and think of something. Yeah, I've got no idea right now, but I'll try and think of something today. So hopefully this Heiken-Ashi analysis has helped. And what the idea is that you use it on the big time frame, then you drill down. So possible the daily is going to be naughty. All right, so, and we've got a busy calendar as well this week, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. And the idea is that you drill down and then try and get the low time frames to match. Perhaps you could wait for a 15-minute candle potentially, knowing that the weekly is bearish. So hopefully it's helpful, and I'll be back tomorrow for the video that begins with I, and that's with J as well. Actually, I've no idea what to do for I or J, but we'll get there when we get there. Have a good day, and hopefully it helps, and hopefully you understand the logic there. It's basically the average price of the current bar, and it takes into account the calculation of the previous bar, and it's the midpoint of the previous bar. So that's how we get the colors there. And also, just lastly before I go, what you want to do is, by default, it doesn't have that. I changed that. It's white. I have it to green because it makes sense. Bull, but bullish is green, right? They have theirs on white. So you just change that to green, and then that's what you need to do. So have a good one. I'll speak to you guys tomorrow.